Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is brought to you by the Friends in Recovery community, a thriving network of individuals who are fighting back against the stigma of addiction. Join our hosts as they speak up about the real issues of addiction, treatment, and recovery. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your Friends in Recovery.
Welcome, everyone, to the Friends in Recovery podcast with Jersey Ed. I'm your host, Jersey Ed, along with my co-host, Buckeye Bambi. And Super Beth is not with us today. She had a prior engagement, so we wish her well and welcome back. We welcome her back next show. But we do have Jeff here. Jeff Zeizel is going to take a look at a clinical look at step 12. But before we do that, how's everybody doing?
Good.
Good. Jeff, you look dapper over there, and Bambi, you look beautiful.
Yeah, Jeff's all dressed up for us today. Look at him.
Yeah. Well,
handsome.
It's step 12. It's good to dress nicely.
Dress up for step 12. Good recovery.
That's why I did it
Jeff.
too.
Good recovery.
Yeah, I have no idea what I'm saying.
well, we figured that throughout the year. So,
like by step 12, did you figure that out already, Ed?
Yeah, I know. God. Well, hey, we did have somebody in your place last month because you were busy. Dr. Robin Barnett did a wonderful job filling in. She wasn't Jeff, but she did a great job filling in. And she is she's not a friend in recovery, but she's a fan of Friend in Recovery. And she's been on the show in the past also. So you probably even interviewed her, Jeff, because Jeff used to be the host on our shows. Jeff, myself, and the Podfather started all the show, started everything.
Years ago.
Yeah, 5 years, Jeff. Next year. Yeah.
Wow.
Next February. 5 years, guys.
That's amazing.
Show every week. When does it stop?
we had multiple locations. We were in different states at the time.
We were absolutely. We were in New Hampshire. We started off. Yeah. We went to Massachusetts to Sweet Studio.
Right.
And now we're
remote.
Now we're remote.
In 3 states.
Yeah.
South Carolina, Massachusetts, and Indiana, Ohio.
Illinois.
Oh, okay.
Illinois. Yeah, I wish.
Buckeye,
in Ohio or Florida.
Oh yeah, because I think Buckeye, that's like Ohio, isn't it? But,
yeah.
Well, it is. I'm an Ohio girl, born and raised. So
you're a Flatlander.
That's it. So there you go. So, real quick, the podcast hotline, if you want to get a hold of Jeff or any of us, the non-emergency hotline, if you want to just talk and figure out what's going on in your life, it's 800-989-6504. Or you can send an email to me, to us at help@friendsinrecoverypodcast.com. We are looking for an intern. So please email us. We have no luck with that. And Jordan's on here. Let's address this issue with Jordan while we're here. While we have her attention. Where's my email,
That's
Jordan?
Right.
Anyways.
Corey's here.
Good morning. John is here. Looks like he might have the flu. So feel better, John. Let's see. I'd like to thank all the donors for who makes this show possible. To make a donation, please Venmo us. You can Venmo us at Friends in Recovery Enterprises under business, Cash App at Friends in Recovery, or send the old check, Friends in Recovery Enterprises, to P.O. Box 1551, Johns Island, South Carolina, 29457. And Friends in Recovery is now part of the FIRE network. And if you want to know what that means, go to our website, friendsinrecoverycommunity.org, and you'll find it on there. Again, this show is this week's topic is a clinical look at step 12 with Jeff Zeizel. Am I pronouncing your name right, Jeff? Zeizel. How do you pronounce it?
You tweak the accent. Zeizel.
Jeff, I always say Zeizel. So the Zeizel is the Italian, and the Zeizel is the Jewish. Is that how it is?
Right. Well, I used to tell you I was Italian, but I really wasn't. It's because I was trying to bond with you.
You want to tell them the little twist now?
Yeah. So I always said Ed is like the most Italian guy I know. He's from Jersey. He talks like me, actually. But
yeah, I do.
New Jersey. Really inked. We go to dinner, always go to Italian restaurants. Then he gets his DNA done through, was it the FBI and that undercover operation? No, that was something else. It was the 23andMe.
Yeah.
They do his DNA, and he turns out Ed is more Jewish than Italian.
Yes,
My
that
cousin.
is true. That's right. So Jeff has been
welcome to the tribe.
Yes. So we converse on holidays.
Right.
You were trying to teach me some Hebrew,
Old Testament.
Yeah. So
you
there you go.
Rome is the second oldest city in the world after Jerusalem. And when Julius Caesar was the reigning emperor of Italy, he ended up choosing Catholicism as the religion they wanted. But the research said he was actually very close to choosing Judaism. Yeah,
but weren't they all Jews back then?
They were all Jews.
Yeah.
They were
That's
Jews.
crazy.
Yeah. So, of course, Jesus, I always get a kick out, when I'm talking to someone who's possibly anti-Semitic and they're talking about Jesus, I say, hey, Jesus was Jewish, get off of it.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to the We Are Jewish show.
Yeah, welcome to
Jeff Zeizel and Ed Chancho.
We always sort of digress slightly, but that's the beauty of all three of us getting together.
That's the beauty of our ADHD, Jeff.
It's a gift.
It's a gift.
It's a gift and a curse.
It is absolutely. So stay tuned for some amazing recovery talk on step 12. Literature today, guys, while you're waiting to hear what's going on, is going to be, I'm using the 12 and 12. Bambi is just going to listen and chime in when she can, and Jeff has all that knowledge in his head, and he's gonna pull from there. Real quick sober shout outs. I have Jeff, you have one. You have a sober shout out?
Yes, real quick? I do. So a gentleman I've been seeing who actually spent some time in some of your treatment programs, and his name is John C. And he, on December 31st, he will have 1 year.
All right, John C. Congratulations.
Great. That year is the first year is, I think, one of the most amazing, significant milestones for people in recovery.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something
1 year is
remarkably proud of.
Yeah, congratulations, John C. And we always love hearing those stories, Jeff. We always love hearing those stories because we always hear the other stories a lot at a time. Right, exactly. So that's why another reason why I want to bring these sober shout outs, because the milestones, and Bambi, you're coming up on a big milestone next month. And we're going to have a big celebration on that one. But, we get to hear the war stories, the horror stories all the time, but let's celebrate, let's shout it out. Let's tell everybody I'm sober, this many years or this many months or even this many days or this many hours. We still have to celebrate that because that's how it starts. Yeah. It starts by an hour, starts by a minute, right?
Exactly. And you know what's great about that, Ed? Because it's so relevant to step 12, because when you see someone and they have some time, they're working in the recovery and they're doing well. And sometimes that person, and that person when they were using and they were like a train wreck. And you say, oh my God, if that person can do it, maybe there's hope for me. That's how it works. That's why, that's the beauty of this 12 steps and of AA and 12-step programs. We're in it together, and everyone maybe starts at a different spot, but we all learn from each other. Even when we learn how poorly, when we see someone doing very poorly, we learn from that too.
Absolutely. And I like that point that you brought up, Jeff. You're not in recovery. I called you out, but
I apologize, but that's true.
No, but here's the thing: you can relate, you can understand, you can help guide. Somebody can call you up and say, Jeff, this is what's going on, and they can relate to you also. So you don't have to necessarily be in recovery to help people, and just like you're doing, Jeff. And there's a lot of great people out there that are doing great work that are not in recovery. So we have to give a shout out to them too, because they don't celebrate years. They don't say, oh yeah, I'm not in recovery. I'm a normie for the last 25 years of my so we have to give you guys a shout out too.
but it's an interesting point, because we can all we all suffer. We all have pain in our lives. So you don't necessarily have to have the same pain to understand what it feels like to have problems in your life. So, I don't have to necessarily go through a divorce to understand and intellectually realize how painful that must be, because I may have other experiences that have to do or breaking up or leaving people you care about or something like that.
Exactly.
So there are many ways to relate, and that's how we all help each other, because we all bring something to the table. We all have our own experiences and background.
That's right.
Sometimes connect the dots.
We all have a story to help. Well, we can either help people with it or we can hurt people with it. And, a lot of us choose in this field to help people with our stories. So on that, John C., congratulations. Bambi, any shout outs? Nothing you said today?
I don't have any shout outs. Well, I know, our Jimmy H just had 11 months because I had 11 months yesterday.
Yeah.
So he's right before me.
Yeah.
So we're doing that countdown. So, and every single month I celebrate on that date. I do something special because even though it's a month, I do something just, hey, it's a big feat for me. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, and why not? It's just, we celebrated every single day with drugs and alcohol, right? So why not one month, right? There you go. So
absolutely.
And that's being mindful. That's like reminding yourself of where you've come from. So like the ability to be mindfulness, that's really all about gratitude. You take a moment to think about what you've accomplished, and that particular day is like, this is the day that it all started changing. And then you realize how even having a bad day, for whatever reason, you're having personal troubles or stress, etc., it's still better than, that day when you were addicted and using and, impaired, etc.
Yeah, that is 100% right. Absolutely. I got a couple of shouts. Well, I want to shout out to Derek W. He's on here. Jeff, you might know him. He said, yes. So welcome. I think it's the first time you've seen him on the show. So welcome, Derek. And I have to do a standing shout out to Carl at Soberpod. Carl, he produces our show, and you guys have to listen to Soberpod. Please turn the dial a little to the left and just go listen to Soberpod. Him and Chelsea do an amazing show. Just get over there and give them a listen. I also want to check my shirt out. I want to move my mic. See this? We lost Bambi. Strength in numbers. Bambi will be back, but I think Bambi had some problems with her video, but she'll come back on. It's the church I go to, the Seacoast Church. I just want to give Pastor Mac a shout out. He's been very inspirational to me and getting some of the Friends in Recovery stuff into his church. So I'd like to give him a shout out and say thank you for everything you do for us, Pastor Mac at Seacoast, and we really appreciate it. A real quick meeting update and social media update. Don't forget we have twice daily AA Zoom meetings. You can find them at our website at friendsinrecoverycommunity.org or on aa-intergroup.org. Look for us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Friends in Recovery Communities, what else? And adventures. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, and give us a 5-star review. So please do that. That means a lot. So this show can get kind of pushed out to us, to people who need it. And that helps us out tremendously getting this show going. Jeff, Bambi is not back yet. She might have had some internet problems. Because she was breaking up a little bit as she was speaking before.
Breaking up is hard to do.
Yeah, breaking up is hard to do. Yes, absolutely. I'm going to ask you the question of the week, Jeff. And Bambi, I know Bambi, hopefully she'll be back to kind of do the question of the week. But the question of the week.
Question of the week
is, what would you name your yacht if you had one? What would you name your yacht if you had one? Or you might have a yacht. You might have a yacht. So well, I don't know if any of us in this field would have a yacht. I don't think so.
Maybe a little rubber dinghy or something.
Yeah.
Well, in an alternative lifestyle, since I actually just returned a couple of weeks ago from Medellin, Colombia, I was on vacation. But if I was living a different life, I would probably have a boat that says crime does pay.
Crime does pay.
I am not in that line of work.
Yes.
I'd probably would probably call it mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
Like, what a beautiful thing to like be in the ocean and just embrace it and just like own it and appreciate every moment. But you know what they say about a boat owners, the 2 best days of a boat owner's, Ed?
What's that?
They sold the boat, because owning a boat is a lot of work and expensive. So I would call it mindfulness. I think that's like keeps you in the moment, and you enjoy it. And it's important to enjoy every day, not just the day you buy it and sell it.
Yeah.
What about you?
So my boat name would be, it's on my wall. You guys can't see it, but I would call my yacht Gone Running. Okay. So when I first started running, when I got into early recovery, and you can't see it's on my back of my wall because of the background, but I have this little metal thing made out of like wire and painted really nice. And it says Gone Running with a little runner on it. And I bought that from marriage to marriage, from house to house. And it sticks right by me because, as everybody knows, I love running. Jeff, you do too.
Yeah.
And that would be a perfect boat for me. Gone Running, a name of my boat would be Gone Running. So,
that's a nautical term for sailing. So when you are sailing your boat and the wind is, there's different ways the wind hits the sail. So when you have the strongest wind to get the boat to go the fastest is when the sail is pushed all the way out perpendicular to the boat. It's capturing the maximum amount of wind. And when you do that, you're on a run.
Oh.
So it's the time the boat goes the fastest, being on a run.
Okay.
So it's a unintended, a double entendre, Ed.
There you go.
Running and running.
Running, yes.
And I get to use the word double entendre.
Yes, and you never work that into your vocabulary on a daily basis. That's a tough
word. It's a way work. I usually try to get the word concur once a day, based upon the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio when he was pretending he was someone else. And he was in the operating room, and he says, "Doctor, do you concur?" Yes, I concur.
Have you ever said that in a group setting, or does anybody concur with me?
I do. I use it.
Do you really?
And I say, "So, do you concur with that?" And they say yes, and then I tell why I want them to, why I like that.
That's good. That's good. Well, would you concur with me? We should start talking about step 12.
I do concur.
All right. Oh, Bambi, sorry, y'all. I cannot connect, but my yacht name would be Brutus, which is, of course, the Buckeyes mascot and was my first pug's name. Well, Bambi, try to keep getting back on, because we're gonna have a little talk about step 12 here, and we're hopefully you can get back on. I know her internet was going out a little bit, but so her Brutus is her yacht's name. So when we all get yachts, we'll all line them up and we'll take pictures and we'll put them on here on Friends in Recovery.
Ed too, Brutus. Yes, we should do that, Ed.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe when the podcast we'll do from the yacht.
That's right. When this podcast takes off, when you guys like, subscribe, share, and comment below, right? When that happens, we'll be the next Joe Rogans of whatchamacallit. So
anything's possible.
That's right. Well, Jeff, we're on step 12. I want to take a minute before we talk about step 12. I'm going to read step 12, the short version of it, and we'll get into it. But I do want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. You're a near and dear friend of mine. You're my go-to guy, not the my non-recovery go-to guy. As you know, we shared something the other day that you helped me through, and you always help me through a lot of things. So I want to thank you personally for doing that for me. I really, really appreciate that. And also from the podcast standpoint of view, you have a lot going on. We heard a little story before about, when you were in Sandy Hook, and your life is kind of busy like that all the time. So you to carve out an hour or two a month, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's hectic with everything else going on. The Friends in Recovery really appreciate it, Jeff. We really, really do.
It's my pleasure. And I feel the same way about you. When a lot of times, I'll be driving, going somewhere, like something, unfortunate maybe happening. I'm responding to a suicide or a shooting or something. I'll just call you up just to say hello.
Yeah.
And it's so refreshing just to talk to someone who's like so grounded and has like such positive energy. So like,
Thanks.
yeah, I
Thanks.
love you too, man.
Yeah, thanks, brother. I love you too. So now that we got our bromance out of the way,
Right?
we don't have any Bambi in here to break that up. So
It's just you and I, Ed.
That's right. That's right. So we're going to talk about step 12, and step 12 reads, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to an alcoholic and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. So step 12 is not the end, right? It's really just the beginning. If you think about it, beginning of something different, right? For me anyways, after working through all these steps, here it comes. I can pass this message on now with certainty, with conviction, with understanding that I reached step 12. I went through everything with my sponsor, and now I can pass it on to somebody else. I mean, of course, along the way, I passed it on and so on and so forth. But once I become aware and understand and really work the steps with my sponsor and find out who I am, not what the program's about. The steps aren't about the program. The steps are about finding out who I am. This becomes, I pass it down to the next addict, alcoholic who needs that guidance through things, or just needs a ear to lend. And so that's kind of what, to me, step 12, when we come to this point, brings me at. So that's from the AA standpoint of view. What's your thoughts on step 12 from a clinical standpoint of view, Jeff?
So you actually teed it up perfectly. So step 12 is such a meaningful step, but as you point out, it's not the end. It's just a continuation. So I always say, like the 12 steps, I've used this phrase before, the 12 steps are like painting a bridge. When you get to the other side, what do? You start all over again, because there's always more work, and life is not fluid. Life is not static. It's fluid. It's up and down. So, every person who is in recovery, and every human being has good days and bad days. And just because you have a bad day doesn't mean you regress to like an earlier level of dysfunction. You learn how to coexist with it. But step 12 is a fantastic thing, because what do we learn about it? We know that when you help others, ultimately you're really helping yourself.
Yeah.
And what's the best way to have empathy for someone who has an addictive disorder is to understand how painful it was for yourself. So the most empathetic people are people who've been there. So when you know that someone has had this horrific experience and it's in terrible psychological pain and going through lots of anguish and disruption and difficulties in their lives, and their family's upset with them, and they have financial difficulties and spiritual difficulties and emotional. And then you find someone who's been there. You rely upon, so the person in early recovery will rely upon someone who has some like time under their belt, because then they are the role model for you. And they say, hey, this person got through this. Maybe I should like see what they have to say. And it's not that the person has the answers, the program has the guidelines, and you integrate them into your life, because there's no one person who's like greater than anyone else. We are all damaged and imperfect to some degree. And it's also in a continuum. So some days, I may have my act together, and other days I'm a basket case. So, but the great thing about that whole model is that there are other people who can step in, and there are other people who can help you. But we learn from each other. We learn from people who are doing well, and we learn from people who aren't doing well. So how do you learn from someone who's not doing well? Well, let's see, that person wanted to just stop by their drug dealer's house to see what was up. Bad idea, because very bad, because that will then, possibly and often lead to like a relapse. So we learn from their mistake. So, isn't it great to learn from mistakes, ideally from someone else's mistakes?
Absolutely.
So we don't have to repeat that. But the beauty of step 12 is really about the whole concept of giving it back. We hear about these things, pay it forward, help someone else, help others. And by doing that, you become an altruistic person. So you and I, and Bambi's not here at the moment, but we're all altruistic because we help others. But while we're helping others, we help ourselves. So and interesting enough, the holidays are upon us now, and we also know that it's so great to like volunteer and give others. And you see these like places where they're requesting gifts for children.
Yep.
And the Marines have a program, Toys for Tots, and there's all sorts of other nonprofits want to help people,
Yeah.
food pantries, etc. So we know we really truly help ourselves when we're helping others. And how great does that feel? It feels fantastic.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Both folks benefit, and that's how step 12 works.
I want to just piggyback off of when you said when we help others, we help ourselves, right? We actually have a winter camping trip coming up in February of 2023. If anybody wants any information on it, email me and I'll give you it and all the particulars. But I was driving home from the winter camping trip this year. We do it in North Jersey, and I started getting into my own head. And when I get into my own head, I know I have to call my sponsor. So I called my sponsor and I said, Andy, blah, 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 so on and so forth. And he goes, Eddie, did you call another addict or alcoholic today? I'm like, no, what does it have to do with my stomach? My stomach hurts. He goes, did you help another addict or alcoholic today? What does that have to do with my stomach? He goes, did you reach out to Hand of AA to help anybody? Or are you just calling me to complain about your stomach? Hit home, man. It really hit home. Then he goes, Eddie, why don't you hang the phone up and call your grandson? That really hit home. Now, my grandson's not in recovery. He's young. He's what, 12, 13. He's 13 years old, but just reaching out to another human being. It doesn't even have to be somebody in recovery. And just like you stated at the beginning of the show, when you're driving somewhere, you do pick the phone up and do call me. That gets you out of your head, gets you out of self to help you cope with whatever you might be going through. If you're walking into a disaster, or even like you said, if somebody's relapsing or want to relapse, you pick up the phone and you call somebody and say, hey, listen, this is what's going on. And then you're helping that person because you're reaching out to them and you're helping yourself and so on and so forth. So I like what you said about, we're when we help others, we're really helping ourselves. And that's where this step really kind of takes off. So when we can help ourselves, again, we're able to get into that next mode. Like you said, it's not the end. It's just, a continuing of everything.
When we think about people who are resilient, one of the characteristics of resiliency is actually the ability to reach out and help someone else, because that somehow, and there's probably some research about it, but it changes how we feel, and it changes brain chemistry. So we know that when people are having good days and bad days, there's a whole bunch of variables that contribute to it. It's external, it's internal, and we can change our moods by changing how we think. That's the whole concept of cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah.
But AA is all cognitive behavioral therapy. You read the Serenity Prayer. That's a reframing of the experience. And we sometimes will reframe things, and it's all different cognitions. And it's so funny because I often will see these bumper stickers around town in people's cars. And honk if you're a friend of Bill W's. So I'll be with my wife, I honk the horn. Why are you honking? I said, you see that bumper sticker? What's that? That's one of the guys who started AA.
Yeah.
It's interesting because sometimes you honk the guy and he forgets he has the bumper stick and he flips you off. Like, hey, yeah, we're good friends, but but it is interesting because it's just a way of looking at things. And if you change how you look at things, you change how you feel.
Absolutely.
When you help others, you also change how you feel. So we know the research around how to develop resiliency. One of the things we do is we help other people, and how powerful that is when you are experiencing the ability to help others. And then what happens? You develop a human connection, and you also you remind yourself, like, I don't want to be in this guy's shoes because he's having, unfortunately, some terrible things, and then you become grateful. It's all about gratitude.
Yeah.
So, and we don't often think about other people in terms of our own gratitude. We think about ourselves. But one of the best ways to have gratitude is to think about, how someone else, unfortunately, may be suffering. That this tremendous empathy. So in the early 80s, there was a civil war in Iraq, the Sunnis and the Shias. And there's been multiple civil wars in war zones, of course, everywhere. There's Ukraine and Russia and Syria and so on, Middle East.
Yeah.
But a lot of these folks, so the Shias and the Sunnis are Muslim sects, and they lived typically in the same neighborhoods. So when the war was going on, so what was actually the Iranian and the Iraqis were fighting.
Okay.
So it was the Shias and the Sunnis. And there were people who lived in a particular neighborhood in Iraq, and because it was so undeveloped in some ways, there would be a government car with a casket strapped on the top of the car. And the entire street had sons who were fighting in the Iraqi military during it wasn't the Civil War, it was the Sec War between the Iranians and the Iraqis. So everyone would open up their windows and hope that that car would not pull up to their house.
Oh,
that meant their son was dead. And a sigh of relief would occur when they went to the neighbor's house. And now you're also you feel both relief that it wasn't your kid, and the language because it was your friend's son.
Yeah.
So that's empathy, because you're suffering with them, but you're also relieved that it's not you, because they can sort of go about your life. What terrible tragic event. But that is sometimes what we see in step 12. You peek into the pain of someone else's life, and you become grateful that it's not your pain, and then it reminds you of what your pain was. But you can then be so empathic to them because you've been there. So there are many ways to help people, but step 12 is just like a beautiful sort of launching pad, rather.
Yes. Yeah.
Or a linchpin to sort of open up the abilities that we all can sort of give back and help others.
Yes. The giving back. Yeah, you're right. Giving back. I want to go back a little bit to what you were saying, the serenity prayer, Jeff. We can actually do a whole show on the serenity prayer, really dissect. Maybe we'll do that next year. But when you mentioned the serenity prayer, I know why I use it. And how does the serenity prayer work with step 12? I mean, because you did mention it, and does it, or did I take that comment the wrong way? But how do you see the serenity prayer working with step 12 to help others to have this spiritual awakening and carry the steps? I mean, what does that have to do with, kind of step 12?
So I think one of the beauties of it is that you start realizing how powerless you are. But there are certain things you can control. So what can you control? I can control. So I may not be able to control the problems in my life to some degree, but I can control the ability to reach out to another person and offer some support to them. Yeah. And by doing that, I sort of let go and let God. I just allow things to occur. So think about how many times have you tried to help someone and you do all the right things, but what happens? It actually doesn't work. Yeah. For whatever reason, they're not ready. Yeah. They don't hear you. They're in too much pain. They had too much pathology. They just gave up. They don't.
Family's getting away.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
So, but does that mean you failed? I don't think so.
No.
I think it means that, number one, you can feel good about yourself. You did the right thing. Number two, you maybe planted seeds with that person. Number three, you did establish some sort of relationship. Yeah. And that one of the things we know is that what helps people is the power of another person, that relationship. So those of us who are helping others, we also have to come to terms that we are only responsible for our effort. We're not responsible for the outcome. Yeah. Why is that? Because we are powerless about the outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's where the serenity prayer comes. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can. Exactly what you're talking about, right? And that's from a more of a religious point of view.
But a spiritual point of view.
Yeah. Spiritual, yeah. And that's what it has. Spirit at the beginning, having had a spiritual awakening. What's your definition of a spiritual awakening in this context, Jeff?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I think it's really about looking beyond yourself. So when we think about, all of us have an element of selfishness or narcissism or self-centeredness or something, and we need that because we have to take care of ourselves, but not to the point where it interferes with someone else. Yeah. So someone who is selfless will share their last meal with them, or will help them, or will give something to them, or will reach out and help somebody, which is different than being an enabler. An enabler is contributing to the person's decline. A selfless act is helping someone achieve. So, but the sense of spirituality is that, their power is greater than us. And we also think about how we just try to, so I love that the comment when we talk about it is like AA is a selfish program because it's really care of yourself. So and that's not truly selfish. That we say that because it's sort of like is the easier tagline, but it's really about if I want to help others, I need to help myself.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a sense of spirituality about like, is this the right thing to do? What is right? And so we question ahead because we question ahead what's the right thing to do. And I think at the end of the day, it's like, well, if I do X, what happens? If I do Y, what happens? And I think at the end of the day, a sense of spirituality allows us to just let go of things because we know that there's so many variables in life that we the best can. We can try to help others, and we can just sort of sometimes pray or have a belief or focus on like, I'm just going to try to sort of keep it simple and do the best I can. That's why I would say AA has the best bumper stickers. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
So a sense of spirituality. I start my day. I did it this morning. I walk outside, ideally I put my clothes on first, Ed, and then I go outside.
Well, thank God.
Yeah, thank God.
You live on a busy street, so.
Exactly. I can scare a lot of people. So I walk outside this morning, it was 27 degrees. I just wear a t-shirt, I throw a pair of slack pants on, whatever, jeans, and I work out. And I just get fresh air. I always say to my wife, I'm going out to get some fresh air. She knows what I'm doing. I go out, I take some deep breaths. I look around, I take a moment of mindfulness. I close my eyes. I face my face towards the sun. So why is that? Because the sun has healing powers, vitamin D, elevate moods. You get a lift in just generally feeling better and you get some warmth, even if it's cold. And then I say to myself, have a good day today. Do the right thing. To me, that's spirituality. I just sort of let it all go and it's out of my hands. And then I go back in. I usually drink coffee after that. But
and that's a gift. So here on page 107 of the 12 and 12, it says, what he has received is a free gift. And yet usually, at least in some small part, he has made himself ready to receive it. Right. And that's kind of what you're talking about. You're ready to receive the gift of the day. You're ready to receive whatever it is. And I think as alcoholics, addicts, I think that's what we have to be mindful of. Your boat's name, and we have to be mindful of that gift because that gift can go away very easily. And I'm not talking about just drinking and drugging and doing all that stuff, because we can get caught up in, oh my God, the light took too long. This guy cut me off. The woman in the store is talking to the cashier. I mean, all that stuff can go crazy. And that gift can be easily taken away for the moment. I'm not saying it's going to be taken away forever, but we worked so hard to get to step 12. Why should we let the light taking too long? Why should we let the person taking too long at the store or whatever,
the rude person,
really bother us when, listen what you just said. I stand outside in the cold, thanking my higher power and looking at the sun for what I have. That's so simple, but so powerful, Jeff.
Yeah. And it's, and I like the way you sort of described it, because there's so many things in life we have no control. And, we all know that there's going to be a last day that we're going to do something. So while I'm walking outside and even if it's overcast today, I happen to be beautiful out, 27 degrees and sunny, like that's beauty. And I just breathe and I clear my head. And that's, we talk about spiritual awakening. That allows me not only to be physically awakening, but spiritually awakening, because I'm thinking about how grateful I am to be doing this. And what am I doing? It's nothingness. It's just out there. I'm not doing a thing. I'm not reading the paper. I'm not checking emails. I'm not, looking at TikTok. I'm not on my phone. I leave the phone away. I clear my head, and that's a gift. And that's a wonderful way to start. It is interesting because I think spirituality is tied into everything we do, but we don't always think that way. So the other day I go to the bank and I'm doing a transaction and I'm making paying a bill, a mortgage thing. And I have both cash and a check. And for whatever reason, the system was not working at this particular bank. And I'm there for like 45 minutes. But I'm keeping my cool because I'm not. So the manager comes over, introduces, come on, please step in my office, start chatting. And he says to me, I really want to thank you for being so patient and so calm.
Wow.
Because most people aren't like that.
Mm-hmm.
So what I say to him is I said, well, you're welcome. And, thank you for saying that. However, I said, I actually have something to point out to you. I'm not staying patient and calm for you.
Mm.
I'm staying patient and calm for myself.
Mm.
You're just the beneficiary of it.
Yeah.
And he laughs. So
Wow.
I said, and it's true. Why is that? Because I have insight about how I wish to behave.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to carry myself a particular way. And I work towards, having this mindset and this approach and this attitude, just like people work the steps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It doesn't happen by default. It doesn't happen automatically. It's so easy to lose it and say, oh, I don't care anymore. Screw this body. I'm going to use again. Why bother? So I said to him, I was meditating a little this morning. I went in my backyard. I was breathing deeply. I was looking at the sunlight, etc. I said, you benefit from my meditation today. We left this, and then we had a conversation about it. I said, I take pride in sort of trying to be the best person I can be. It's always a work in progress.
Yeah.
It's some days it's a struggle. Some days I'm, I have negative thoughts. Some days I'm in a bad place. Some days, I'm an idiot because we all imperfect. So I said, this day I have to be working on not being so impatient.
Exactly.
And I know that's a flaw for me. I'm not really impatient. I'm rushing to places when I don't even have to be there.
Exactly. Yeah. What are you rushing for? Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I want to read something else out of the 12 and 12 on page 109, the last paragraph, really the last sentence, kind of tie it into what you're talking about. His own character may be still gravely defective, but he somehow knows that God has enabled him to make a mighty beginning. And he senses that that he stands at the edge of a new mysterious joy, mysteries, joys, and experiences of which he never have dreamed about. Right. So that's
all about
where
self-worth. That's all about self-esteem.
Exactly.
So we work through these steps. And by the way, you can feel just as good about yourself in step 1 and step 12.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't go, it's not you feel better incrementally as you go through each step. No, you can maximize your own personal experience and feel good about yourself and love yourself and forgive yourself as you go through all these steps, because each has a separate message.
Yes.
So the best way to honor your life is to is to work the steps and live your life accordingly. So I often tell people who don't even have addictive disorders, you should read about the 12 steps, because I think it's a great roadmap to be a fine person. That's really what it is. Yeah. You can interchange addiction with other words, depression, selfishness.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that's how the world lives. And I'm going to segue into something what you just said. All the steps kind of go into everything. I want to this, because this is going to be your last show with us on the steps. You're, like I said, you're always welcome to join us anytime, but I want to kind of go into a recap of all the steps. I like how you said step 1 does this, step 2 does that, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. But let's look at all the steps put together. So you were with us from day 1, from when we did this. You began this to today. When you put all these steps together, I know you get recovery, I know you get a good life, but how do you see this as a human being, or even just from a therapist standpoint of view? How would one kind of put these steps, put these steps into action in their life without saying, what was step 12? Okay, what was step 11? I mean, what's the overall plan for the steps? If I would come into your office and say, Jeff, I did all the steps, where do I go from here now? And maybe just an overview.
So it's a great question again, because it's really about, so when we think about what's therapy, what's the 12 steps, what are all these things that intersect with each other? Because we can sometimes be our own therapist by reminding ourselves what we need to do. And sometimes that's, you often have people, they'll do self-talk. So self-talk is really using words that you would sort of impart on someone else, just reminding yourself of what they are. And we can learn from that. So therapy, the true definition of therapy is to learn. It's not as, when I was in graduate school, we were, one of the things we learned was that, the therapist, quote, sort of has the power, which is quite true. And the person's coming in, they're a little more vulnerable, but you have to sort of be on their level, which is why therapists should never sit behind a desk and have the person sit across from the desk. It's just not a helpful model, because it actually shows like there's such a difference in power, and then the person feels sort of perhaps stigmatized or maybe inadequate or uncomfortable going in, and then like you have someone who's not welcoming, either unconsciously or consciously. So the great thing about the steps is that it's on an even playing field. No one is better than anyone else. And one of the things we often hear in AA, who has like the longest sobriety, and what's the refrain? Oh, who got up first today? Because it's about the day. Oh, you have 30 years, but I have a day. But with two people, and we're the same.
Figuring out how to make it work.
Right. So one thing about the steps, all the steps, it's really about learning. It's about taking a challenge and sort of, as we would sometimes say, thin slicing the issue. Look at it. So what's the first step? Just going to terms with like, you're powerless.
Yeah.
So that's a thin slice. Like, all right, that's where I start. And there's as much learning in step 1 as is in step 12, all the other steps. And it's really looking at something with a different perspective, and then having others, help educate you, or you educate yourself. The best way to learn is to realize you don't know that much. So, I try to learn things every day. So, I've talked about this before, about the Stoics of ancient Rome and Greece, and Marcus Aurelius, the most famous Stoic, the Roman emperor 2,000 years ago.
Carl, this is for you.
That's right, Carl. I hope you're paying attention. So what do the Stoics say? Yesterday is dead. Tomorrow does not exist. Yesterday is dead. Tomorrow does not exist. What do we say in AA? One day at a time.
Yeah.
And what's
right
the
here.
other expression? If I have a foot in yesterday and a foot in tomorrow, I'm urinating in today.
It's like, on today. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's always about. So when we do the overview of all the steps, each step has a gift for us. What a great way to look at it. It's like I could read this step and I get a gift. Wow, what's the gift? The gift is learning. The gift is change of behavior. The gift is seeing something that can better myself. There's so many analogies like that. What's that going?
A new life, right? It gives you a new life.
Like that. You go to the gym, maybe you have anxiety, you feel inadequate. I don't know what I'm doing, but the courage it takes to show up at an AA meeting, knowing you're out of your comfort zone. Yeah. That's a gift. How do we learn? We learn by doing things that are hard. We don't learn by doing things that are easy.
No.
How do we improve self-worth? By doing something that's hard. So you're going to run maybe a half marathon, and you've run many marathons.
Tomorrow. I'll be running one tomorrow.
Right. So that takes courage. Yeah. And so when you're running, what happens? It takes courage. You have to have your head in the game. You have to have the proper gear. There's so many elements you have to have. But the most important thing is the willingness, and the willingness to open yourself up to feel pain. Yeah. Because it's all about pain.
It's going to be pain. Yeah. It's going to be painful. Well, you're right. I am running a half marathon tomorrow, the Kiowa half marathon here in South Carolina, but I didn't just decide to go running yesterday and start everything, bought a brand new pair of sneakers, some running shorts and shirt. It took a lot of pain to get where I'm at, to get to where I'm going. Right. But, and that is also what we do in life. And I like what you said about the power. The therapist has a power, right? But I think what you do as a therapist, you give that power back to the client or the AA member, which in turn, it can let them see like, listen, I don't have to run a marathon today. I can start with 2 steps, and then I can go 3 steps tomorrow and 4 steps. And
what
so
a great
on and so forth.
It's a great analogy. It's like one step at a time. How do you run? One step at a time.
That's it. Yeah.
And you build upon it, and you build up to it. So just as you build up to your recovery and 12 steps and work through all the steps and the principles and attend meetings, etc., that's how you train.
Exactly.
So we know that when someone's training, like you have trained, Ed, you increase your running 10% a week, give or take.
Yeah.
But there's always setbacks. Yeah. Life has always pain.
Yeah.
You go to AA, sometimes we have a slip or a relapse. Recovery.
Yeah. So divorce, loss of a business, loss of a job, maybe, I don't know, you whatever.
Life happens. the economy
yeah.
changes,
Uh-huh.
interest rates change, supply chain issues, you can't hire staff, you have financial difficulties, you put in the stock market, you lose money, things happen.
Absolutely.
And it's not about whether things happen, it's about how you respond to it.
Exactly. Because they're
to sort of manage your life in a healthy way.
Yeah. Because life is going to happen. Things are going to happen. And like you said, do we go back to resort to our old ideas, to the drugs and alcohol, or do we take these steps and understand what we learned, apply these steps, and move through the pain? Because if we go back, right, if we go back to our old ways, we're not moving through the pain. The pain's going away very temporarily, but that pain will get worse in the morning. Later on, it'll get worse actually, and it'll just spiral into different things. But if we push through that pain, like you said, Jeff, we're going to make it to the other side. We're going to cross the finish line. If it's a marathon, if it's a sobriety, whatever it is, and that's how these steps work. So once I apply all these steps into my life, I can run that marathon. And I don't mean run physically. I mean, I can take life on. Right. And whatever's thrown at me in that long marathon or that ultra marathon or whatever it is, I can handle it. Now, will I cry and scream and yell? Sometimes, of course I will, but I'll be able to go through that, and that's what I get out of all the steps.
And it's, you explain it so beautifully, because that's really about life in itself. And by the way, pain is a gift. Mm-hmm. Those who have suffered understand the beauty of life. Those who have not suffered often, but not always, often take many things for granted. So, as I one of my sons once said to me, Dad, you've traveled around the world, you've been to a lot of places, you've had great meals. What's your best meal? What's your favorite meal? My favorite meal was in 1977 when I was a young, college kid on a train going from Istanbul to Venice as I was backpacking, and I was told I can buy food on the train. Well, the train had no food. And it's like a 2-day train ride. So I had no food for 2 days. But I was on the train car with about 4 Turkish workers who were actually going to Germany. And they spoke no English. I spoke no Turkish. Mm-hmm. They spoke German. I knew a little Yiddish. So Yiddish is like old German. Mm-hmm. So we spoke to each other in our sort of non-native tongues. And they asked me if I was hungry, and I said yes, and they gave me a cheese sandwich.
Wow.
That was my best meal. Why? Wow. Because I was hungry and I had nothing to eat for a couple of days. Everything is relative. So that's gratitude. Mm-hmm. And the 12 steps is all about gratitude. So when you have enough gratitude, guess what? You help someone else. Yeah. So that guy gives me a sandwich. He felt good. Yep. I ate it. I felt good. Yep. And I'm guessing he felt better than me.
I'm sure, because he helped you out.
That's how it goes. So the interesting thing is that, I often say, to people I see in my office, in recovery, not in recovery, non-addicted folks, I said, let's talk about gratitude, because it gives you perspective in life. So one of the guys once says to me, Jeff, I don't quite understand gratitude. I said, well, I'll help you understand it. Monday to Saturday, when you get up, take a cold shower. Sunday, take a long, hot shower.
That is gratitude. Absolutely. Well, Jeff, thank you so much. Thank you for helping us understand the steps and step 12 and taking a look back at all the steps and all the months you helped us out with, the clinical look at things, because there is a clinical look at this also. And we found that out in the last 12 months. And if you guys want to listen to some of the shows, please look back at some of the Jeff shows, and he'll go through each show on like he did here, more of a clinical and a personal view of his also. And we really appreciate it. Jeff, again, thank you so much. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being a friend of us in recovery. And thank you really for helping all those people out there who may or may not have recovered with, at least they have your tools in their toolbox now. And that is really, really important to us as friends in recovery, to have somebody like you on our side.
Well, I would say right back at you, Ed.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jeff. Thanks. You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, guys, that is it for our show today. Jeff, again, looking at step 12, and I'm sure we're going to have you as a guest next year. We'll keep this going. We'll have great topics, but we really appreciate it. And stay sober, everybody.
This concludes this episode of Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates, and enjoy free access to twice daily support meetings. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.